Hello, welcome back to another FPL video. I hope everyone is doing well. We've come to the end of game week 29, which puts us into an international break. And well, what does the international break allow us to do? It allows us to do a hell of a lot of tinkering because there's no football on, unfortunately. But it gives us more time to look at our teams. And today we're going to be taking a look at players you can really target from like game week 30 to 34, and even the teams you can target until the end of the season. So if you are new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily FPL content. Hit the like button if you do enjoy this video, and let's get straight on into this one. So I picked out 5 teams here that really have some quite decent fixtures coming off. Starting us off with the Wolves, we have an absolute sea of green, playing against Fulham, Sheffield, Burnley and West Brom in their next 5. Even after that, they have, pretty decent fixtures. The only red fixture is West Ham. It's definitely on the lower side of the red fixtures, so I definitely think the Wolves are a good team to target over the next 5 game weeks. We've then got Arsenal, who also have very good fixtures coming up. Actually, in game week 35, they play against West Brom, so they play the bottom 4 sides in the next 6 game weeks. So we could be seeing some big scores from Arsenal players. Obviously, we'll come on to when we actually look at the teams, the kind of rotational problems that are there with Arsenal in terms of FPL players, but they do have some very good fixtures, and Arsenal players are definitely ones that I'd be looking to target. Maybe for Wolves and Arsenal, you could kind of maybe hold off for 1 week as they don't have the best of fixtures come game week 30, but if you are wildcarding this week, then I'd definitely be putting those players in there. We then have Chelsea, who have also a sea of green. If you go into the FPL app, it won't actually be this green. That's because the Crystal Palace and Brighton fixtures are of kind of 3 difficulty, which I've put as orange here. But when you've got the likes of Everton, when you've got the likes of Spurs, even the likes of Arsenal as kind of like an orange difficulty, I feel like I can't put Crystal Palace and Brighton currently in the same bracket as those sides, so they definitely go down to a green fixture. And especially for kind of defensive wise anyway, you've got 4 teams with like West Brom, Palace, Brighton and Fulham who've been really struggling to score, so I think Chelsea clean sheet wise could do very well in the next 5 game weeks. We've then got Everton, who have kind of average fixtures. You see here that they start off obviously with game week 30 against Crystal Palace, which is a nice fixture, and then Brighton, which is another nice fixture, and then some okay fixtures after that. I've also put Everton in here because of the consideration of a potential double game week that they will have to play at some point for the rest of the season. And all of a sudden, if in the next 5 game weeks they do end up getting a double game week, then this becomes an unbelievable run of fixtures for Everton. So that's kind of, in the back of the mind, the consideration that Everton could well have a double game week within these 5 fixtures. Then we've got Manchester United, who have kind of maybe just about above average fixtures, playing against Brighton, Spurs, Burnley, Leeds and Liverpool. I think they can do quite well in terms of clean sheets here as well. Playing against Brighton and Burnley, who typically can't really score too many goals. And then Manchester United have a really good kind of clean sheet record against the top 6 sides so far this season. So Spurs and Liverpool, they could be keeping clean sheets against. And then Leeds obviously in there for the goal scoring potential. I would kind of group Everton and Manchester United as a kind of, just above average fixtures. Obviously Everton could be pushed into the kind of Chelsea, Arsenal, Wolves bracket of very good fixtures if they get the double game week. But if I was going to say, 3 sides to pick from, Chelsea, Arsenal, Wolves just look unbelievable from game 30 to 34, even 35. Arsenal play West Brom in 35, so that looks very good as well. So the first team we're going to look at is Wolves. As I said, they have unbelievable fixtures coming up, and I picked 3 players from each side, which I think you could really kind of target and go for. There are obviously other options as well, like Semedo. You could go with his kind of fullback partner Johnny. I think Semedo offers us a bit more consistency and has been getting more attacking returns, but Johnny, obviously back from injury, could also provide some very good attacking threat as well. The main man, Pedro Neto, is one that I'm set on going for. It's been in my plan for weeks to get Pedro Neto, and I just think he looks unbelievable for this run of fixtures. Just generally, he looks like a really great player. It's an easy transfer from, say, Rafinha to Neto, from 5.5 million to 5.7 million. Easy little swap. Or you could go for Ruben Neves there at 5.1 million on penalties and Dazzle up to grab a goal. They've got 28 goals so far this season, which actually is less than a goal per game. So Wolves, they could have been doing a bit better in terms of the goals. Their XG is 1.43, so that would kind of ensue that they should be scoring more than 1 goal a game. They've obviously missed Raul Jimenez, so that's maybe why they kind of haven't actually been converting the chances that they have been creating. Their big chances created per game of 1.3, which is, okay, especially if, Neto or Neves is getting on one at the end of those. You probably expect them to score it. They've kept 8 clean sheets so far this season, which is pretty average in terms of Premier League this season. But with the sides they have coming up, Fulham, Sheffield, Burnley, West Brom, sides that really haven't been scoring too many goals this season, they could easily go and grab kind of 2, 3, 4 clean sheets in the next 5 games. And their expected goals against is 1.45, which is kind of very average number across the Premier League team so far this season. So they've definitely not got a really bad defence. They've not got the best defence either. The likes of Manchester City are absolutely smashing the defensive statistics. But I do think that Wolves could be some very, very good options for the coming game weeks. Then we've got Arsenal, who, as I say, have some very good fixtures coming up. Now, as I mentioned before, the problem with Arsenal is there's a lot of rotation. I've picked 2 players here in Leno and Tierney solely because we just know they aren't going to get rotated. You never know with Leno. He's had a few stinkers lately, so he may end up getting rotated. But Tierney, if he stays fit, I think he looks probably like the best Arsenal asset. We've got Aubameyang in there because if he is going to play every single game, I think he can absolutely smash it. I was very close to putting Odegaard in here with that performance against West Ham that he showed in the second half. He absolutely bossed the midfield, the way he carried the ball forward, and did get some attacking returns in the end as well. So I think Odegaard could be a potentially good option, but with Odegaard and even with Saka, I think there's going to be a lot of rotation there. So I'm just not really too sure whether I'd want to go for them. I think because Saka is so cheap at 5.3 million, I'd kind of more happily go for Saka because if he does get benched, it isn't as big of a deal. Whereas if the likes of Aubameyang, if he goes and gets benched, I probably would end up captaining Aubameyang as well in some of those games. So if he ended up getting benched, that would be a little bit unfortunate. And if he is on the bench, he probably is likely to come on the pitch as well, especially if Arsenal aren't kind of playing too well. So yeah, I think Aubameyang is one that, if we knew was going to play every single week and 100% go for, I still don't think he's a bad pick, especially with the amount of premiums that are out or just aren't really on form. I don't necessarily think it's the worst idea to go for Aubameyang. Just have in the back of your mind that he may get rotated. They've scored 40 goals so far this season with an XG of 1.44. So with a comparison to Wolves, Arsenal have basically the same XG but have scored 12 more goals this season. They're effectively just converting the chances that they do get. They've got a big chance per game of 1.7, which is a lot higher than Wolves, to be fair. I think their attacking assets could do very well. It's just, as I say, when they get rotated in and out, it's just who is going to play. They've got 8 clean sheets so far this season, and with this run of fixtures, they could easily go and kind of increase that number. Expected goals against a 1.37. Once again, a very kind of average number in the Premier League. I think they're about 9th in terms of expected goals against, or the 9th best team in terms of expected goals against. And I do think that Arsenal they look like a very, very tidy side for the coming fixtures. Then we move on to Chelsea. 2 cows, Chelsea. We've got Mason Mount, Azpilicueta and Rudiger. And let me just shout out the main man, Azpilicueta. I'm kind of really trying to find a way of getting him in my team, but I just can't seem to do it just with the other transfers that I want to make. But if you are on a wildcard or you're just looking for a Game 30 transfer, I honestly think that Azpilicueta is the main man. He hasn't been benched so far under Tuchel, which Rudiger and Mount both have. In terms of kind of Rudiger and Mount, why I've put them in here, it's basically just because the rest of that Chelsea team, we just don't know who's going to play. It seems like Ben Chilwell is getting a bit more time now than Alonso, but you can easily see Alonso coming in for a couple of games. Reece James seems to be getting rotated quite a lot, and the rotation in terms of that attack, you just do not know who is going to play. So I think Mount coming in at 7 million does offer some pretty good value. We've seen him take penalties when Jorginho is not in the side, so that's also a massive upside for him. Rudiger as well, I think although he was rotated for that one game, he will be playing most, if not all of the games for the rest of the season. There will be some rotation with the Champions League, but Azpilicueta seems like the main man for Tuchel, who is just not going to get benched. Kind of like Pep and Ruben Diaz, they just both kind of need that one player who's just going to give them a real bit of assurance at the back that you can kind of play out from. And as I said before, those fixtures for keeping clean sheets look absolutely unbelievable. Obviously, Brighton have a very, very high expected goals, and they did convert some chances against Newcastle, but against a very, very strong Chelsea defence, it's very likely that we'll be seeing plenty of clean sheets for the games to come. They've scored 44 goals so far this season with an expected goals of 1.78, so they're maybe just a little bit underperforming in terms of actually converting their chances. As we see here as well, they've got big chances per game of 2.1, which is very, very high in terms of the Premier League teams so far this season. That means it could be really, really good for their attackers like Mount, and obviously if we see someone like Pulisic, Ziyech, maybe Werner, I'd probably steer away from Werner anyway, but any of the kind of midfielders, if we see them getting consistent time, it could be really, really good to go for them. Clean sheets of 15 so far this season. They are absolutely smashing it since Tuchel has taken charge. And expected goals against of 1.11. Chelsea just look like a really, really good team for the coming game weeks. And a defender especially, maybe even two. You could go for the likes of Rudiger and Azpilicueta. I probably would steer clear of Edouard Mendy just because he doesn't get the save points when he gets a clean sheet. I kind of had the discussion before whereby if Martinez gets a clean sheet, he'll likely get 9, maybe even 10 points. If he gets a 10-pointer, all he needs to do then is get 2 points and he'll have the same amount of points as Mendy gets if he keeps 2 clean sheets in 2 consecutive games. So effectively, Mendy has to keep 2 clean sheets in 2 consecutive games to get the same amount of points as Martinez if he just keeps 1 clean sheet. So I think Mendy's one I'd stay clear from, but Rudiger and Azpilicueta, potentially even a double up, could be pretty unreal. Then we move on to Everton. As I said, they just have kind of like above average fixtures, which could be catapulted into unbelievable fixtures if they do end up getting the double game week, which at some point they do have to play. So it's not kind of like out of the ordinary to think that it could come in the next 5 game weeks. We've got DCL and Richarlison there. I think DCL kind of late hasn't been incredible. He blanked in the big double game week 26, which I know a lot of people were disappointed about. And in that time, Richarlison went and absolutely smashed it. Personally, I'd probably still be going to DCL as he's just a poacher. He's always kind of getting in the mixer. But with that being said as well, DCL doesn't really like a bonus point. I think he ends up fouling a lot of people, so he ends up getting marked down on the bonus points, whereas Richarlison, if he does grab a goal, he will pick up bonus points as well. So it's a kind of a tight call between those two, whereas earlier on the season it would have obviously been DCL. Right now you just kind of have to go with your gut over which one you would pick. I personally would still probably be leaning towards DCL just because of that kind of poacher's mentality that he does have. In terms of other players we've got there for Everton, we've got Luca Digne, who, you know, Everton haven't been the best so far defensively this season, but going forward, Luca Digne looks pretty unreal on set pieces as well, so he has the high potential of bringing you those hauls, especially against the likes of Crystal Palace and Brighton. And as I say, if they get that double game against Aston Villa, Digne is a player that could definitely haul. Everton have scored 40 goals so far this season, so they've been doing okay with an XG of 1.13, was actually very much on the lower side. But as I say, with Calvert-Lewin being the poacher that he is, it's so easy for him to just go and kind of tap the ball in with the big chances per game of 1.8. Very average. They've been doing okay. Clean sheets of 7, as I said, defensively not the best, but also not the worst. And as I say, with the fixtures coming up, they could go and keep a few more clean sheets with expected goals against of 1.6. It's on the higher side, but obviously not the worst. And so I do think that Everton can be a team that you target for game week 30 onwards. Then we move on to Manchester United. As I say, they probably have just above average fixtures, with Brighton, Burnley and Leeds really being the ones to kind of stick out there. I put Bruno Fernandes in here. I know that most of you probably will already own Bruno Fernandes. However, quite a few people have been transferring him out. So this is to the people who are kind of potentially on a wild card and are thinking, oh, do I go for Bruno? For me, it's 100% yes. Go for Bruno. He's very captainable in kind of many of the fixtures coming up against Leeds, against Burnley, even against Brighton. You know, the guy is very, very captainable and just, yeah, you're going to want him in your team basically. And then I've gone for the 2 defenders, Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. For me, if I were to pick between the 2, I'd go for Luke Shaw. He's kind of shown that he's going to get a lot more 90 minutes now under Solskjaer and just going to, that level of consistency. Whereas earlier on in the season, he was kind of swapping about a bit more with Tellez. He was coming off after 45 minutes, but now with the attacking returns that he potentially provides as well, and just the bonus points, I think that Luke Shaw looks the better of the 2. That's not to say that Wan-Bissaka is a bad option, but for me, it will be Luke Shaw. They've scored 56 goals so far this season, which is the highest we have seen so far. So, Man United have definitely been smashing the goals in so far this season with an XG of 1.77, a big chances per game of 2.5. Going forward, they look very, very good. And that is why Bruno Fernandes is in there, just the main attacker for Manchester United. He seems to be the one kind of getting all the attack and returns, basically. Rashford has been a bit meh, and I think with the rest of their attack, Dan James, Greenwood, Cavani, Martial, there's a lot of rotation. If Cavani, say, played week in, week out, I think he would genuinely be a really good option. But because he doesn't, obviously, he's not so good of an option. Clean sheets of 12 so far. It's definitely on the upper end of teams so far this season, which is why I've got Wan-Bissaka and Shaw in there. I really do want Shaw in my team. I think he looks like a pretty unreal asset. And then we've got the XG against of 1.32 as well, kind of showing that Manchester United have been a very, very solid outfit so far this season. So I hope you have enjoyed this quick little look at kind of players to target for game week 30 to 34, and even beyond. I think these players will take you into the back end of the season very, very nicely. Do let me know in the comments down below if you're thinking of potentially wildcarding for this week, or just the players that you don't generally think are good players to target for the coming game weeks. Let me know if I've missed out any teams, or just players, that you think are good to target. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for daily FPL content, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.